said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch! You filthy... Flyover State of Fear.
Welcome to Flyover State of Fear, and we're back, and we have a great guest today, Trent from Nightmare on Fear Street. How you doing, Trent?
I am doing great. I have a drink. I'm ready to go. Yeah, I'm trying not to get COVID, so, you know.
Dodging bullets. You haven't gotten it yet either?
I have not, and which is weird because I live in Arkansas, so that tells you something.
Okay.
And I work in like a assisted living situation, so like I'm shocked that I have not gotten it.
Gotcha.
Well, I haven't gotten it yet. Best
of luck to you. My wife and I, we've stayed clear in 2 years, and it's like dodging landmines at this point.
Exactly.
So good luck to you. In Arkansas, I think you actually fit the flyover name. Like, I'm in Jersey, which is not a flyover state at all, but it's just a good name.
I don't know that we're close. Arkansas? Well, I think that we are to some, but we're not to the Christian conservatives because they all come here, and that puts me on the
gotcha
defensive. But here I am.
All right. So yeah, thanks for joining us today. Like we said earlier, we had your co-host on from a previous episode. Sheree talked about The Conjuring and the Conjuring universe. So check that out.
Yes.
And so to start off, as for new listeners, what is your horror origin story? Kind of, and answer that however you want.
Yeah, no, I have always loved to be scared. The first movie I remember watching is I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like
okay.
I remember that little like ding that it always,
Full disclosure, I was wondering because Trent sent a list of movies to pick, and that one I was like, oh, we could have picked it. I mean, you could have picked it and it would have been fine. But I watched it recently. I don't have any nostalgia for it. I was like, this is rough.
I love it.
And I'm sure, yeah. So this makes a little sense. So please continue.
Yeah. So, growing up, I was born in 1999 or 1989.
Okay.
So late 90s, early 2000s is like my coming of age in the horror world. Before that, I was still into like Goosebumps.
Mm-hmm.
All the kids kind of. I know what you.
Are you afraid of the dark?
Are you afraid of the dark?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I love starter horror.
Scream, of course, is my favorite franchise, my favorite film of all time. I love it. And so, yeah, I've completely grown up in that. And of course, the late 90s, early aughts slashers are my favorite thing. Slashers in general. But
so
specifically 95 to 2002.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what is your, I guess, favorite slasher, which you kind of answered already, and then underrated slasher? Because I feel like there's two different answers there, right?
Yes. I am actually going, of course, my favorite slasher is Scream.
Mm-hmm.
Underrated slasher is, and I might get some hate on this, but I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
Okay.
Solid sequel.
Oh, I still know what you did.
A lot of people don't. The twist is silly. I know. I get it. Everyone looks at it. I get it. The twist is silly. But I didn't. It got me. I was like,
all right. Yeah.
It's so silly that you're like, that's really it.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I've literally either blocked it out or don't remember it or never seen it. Like, I can't give you a straight answer on that one.
And I'm always a fan of the final girls. Sheree likes to say that I like to pick my heroine at the beginning of the movie, and I am stuck with her the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite final girl is definitely I'm a Nancy fan. I'm just Nightmare on Elm Street favorite slasher.
I love the movie Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm not a Nancy fan.
Ah, she's good. What was I watching the other day? I'm just gonna skip because we're gonna spend too long. I remember thinking, is this a Final Girl? It kind of is, and I'm blanking on whatever I was watching.
Yeah,
it was something like a gray area. So we'll continue on that. But this, so anyway, yeah, you mentioned, and then I kind of want to ask you because you said you like to be scared. Do things still scare you?
Oh, all the time.
Okay, yeah, no, same here. I like pick and choose, and like I don't like. Definitely, the last movie that really fucked me up was Hereditary.
Ooh,
Just because
yeah,
of like any demon shit or no, thank you.
yeah.
Please, but
Literally because a lot of people laugh at me when I tell the story, but it's true. When I watched the first Paranormal Activity,
Mhm.
it didn't necessarily scare. Like when I left the movie, I was fine, but like the tension building,
Oh,
in the film
it's creepy.
is so great. And by the end of it, I was literally like my feet were on the like where your butt is in a chair.
Yeah,
My butt was on the back of the chair. My head was in my hands, and I was sobbing
I
because I
was.
was so fucked up.
I think I was a senior in high school when that came out. Senior or junior, and I remember seeing it. And like I said, it was into it, totally tense, and then coming home and like just staying in the living room with kind of lights on all night until I fall asleep because it just movie itself, yeah, but like thinking about it fucked me up. And then the third one's really creepy.
Any supernatural stuff always, I mean, not always, but it can get really scary. You get
Yeah,
scared. That's why I like slashers because
mm.
they're more thrilling, and
Yeah, the
I'm like,
comfort.
and I'm like, okay, go, go, go. Like I know you don't like the movie, but the
You're go on.
the
I don't
chase
care.
scene of Helen, and I know what you did last summer, is like chef's kiss to me.
Mhm.
When she gets out that cop car and running down with her little prom
I
dress
think
on.
I have this.
Oh,
I think with the last summer too. It's intended Scream as well, but I love Scream and it's a different level. It's the scary movie effect. It's like seeing the parodies before you see the
and I hate scary movie because of
and
that.
like my like and that happens. I think that happens to a lot of people. My wife's favorite movies, not another teen movie. And like one day we had on She's All That, and she's like, I've never seen this, but I know not
But
another
I
teen
know,
movie. And that
yeah,
same shit happens with such conversation about urban legends. You could go listen to or like episode 7 of Flyover State of Film, just for reference,
old
anyone
school
listening, or on
classic.
episode 89. So but no, they picked Urban Legends, which is a really fun movie. And so why'd you like what was the thought picking I think I kind of know just because of you said of your like love of that era, which we're a similar age. I love that era of horror movies. There's a comfort to it. There's a slickness where I kind of know none of them are really gonna be like like great to
They're fun.
terrifying. There's a
Yeah,
nice comfort. That's the only
yeah,
word I could find in that.
yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, I really like. So the reason I picked this movie and I added this to the list was I feel like this movie is forgotten in that kind of era of slashers and horror films. The post Scream
Yeah.
kind of thing that kept happening, and I think that's really sad because while this film is not perfect, and I'll get
No.
into reasons why it's not perfect, but like it has a really interesting concept. Like it has a there's something there that I'm like
So
interesting. Plus the cast is like top notch.
it's a great cast. Jared Leto aside, it's a great cast.
Oh, don't get me started.
No,
He was
I'm gonna
attractive back then, but
I'm gonna no I actually because of this movie I hate him even more than just his douchebag persona that he puts out there in the world. And it's because he like gaslit that interviewer, or I don't know if that's the right word, of like pretending not to know what this movie is, like in 2003. So it wasn't even like today. And he was like,
right,
oh, I'm being funny. And she's just asking me questions. And ever since I read that, I'm like, you piece of shit. She was just trying to
right,
do her job. You
exactly,
were in that movie. It's like if you go to see, like every actor or like a lot of actors have a list of things you're not allowed to ask.
right.
Like John Cusack, angrily enough to me, has a list like you cannot talk to him about Con Air.
Really? That's
I
weird.
love Con Air. We're big Nick Cage fans here. And yeah, I heard it. I think in the How to Get Made podcast, but like John Cusack, like it's a no-no. Like and I think a lot of actors have that.
Yeah.
Fuck Jared Leto. But we'll talk about him. And regardless, I mean, he does his job in this movie. And I did a lot of research of, or tried as much as to learn about it, the behind the scenes of Urban Legends. And he was basically just cast because they thought he was like handsome and dark because of My So-Called Life. I'm like, I get that because he does come off that way in this movie.
Yeah.
The character's really, we'll get further into it. It's really like choppy. Having said that, I'm just gonna read the synopsis real quick of what was the internet. Full disclosure, I just copy and pasted it. I didn't actually read it beforehand, so this is either gonna be perfect or way off. Because we found that happens.
Right.
So a university is bested by a rash of gruesome murders that resembles old urban legends. When her friend Michelle is killed by someone hiding in her car, Natalie begins to notice the pattern. Her suspicions grow stronger when her own roommate is strangled to death. Soon, the quiet college campus is transformed into a hunting grounds for a maniac, and Natalie struggles to find the killer and stop the bloodshed before she becomes the next victim. Kind of. It's kind of there.
Close. I think it gives Natalie a little too much credit. This is a movie that oddly, the final girl is probably my least favorite part of this movie.
So Alicia Dewitt, it's funny, man. We didn't start off with that. So she was in The Sopranos. I don't know if you watched it. She played an actress, or yeah, I think she was, or a movie producer or something that Christopher Moltisanti was like hooking up with, and I could only see her in that one lane because she's a good actress, but she kind of just has the same like tone and confidence in each of her roles. She's also in one of my favorite rom-coms, The Last Holiday.
I've seen it. It's been a minute, but
yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. Go watch it, Queen Latifah. But she's
I will tell you, I love cheese. I love all cheese, cheesy movies.
Yeah, it's very cheesy.
I love
we watched it for Christmas last year, and like how's this gets me every time. But Alicia DeWitt's in it, and she plays like Elon Musk's like side piece at the end of the day, like who learns confidence. Anyway, she has the same tone. So going back, she looks, she really doesn't age like for like 10 plus years. Like Alicia DeWitt looks like Alicia DeWitt.
She's a gorgeous girl.
Yeah. So you bring it up, like her being a weak final girl. I think she's all right as a final girl. It's
my problem with her as a final girl is not necessarily her performance; it's the writing of her. Because as the internet said or tried to say that she was trying to find out who the killer was. No, she's not. She's trying to convince everyone that it's happening in the first place.
Yeah.
No one's really believing her, and so she just kind of accepts that. And just
and as anyone who's listening, we're going to jump around. I'm going to go through the movie, but you're just bringing up good points because even her, what I thought was a weird, and I have it in my notes. So before I get to that, I guess the girl that dies in the beginning, we already mentioned that it's the guy in the back seat. It's raining. She pulls into a gas station, a little confusing because she honks. So I'm like, are they in New Jersey? But no, they're in. And my wife pointed that out. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. She would be going to pump her own gas.
Right. That's wild to me. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're the only ones. I think us in like Oregon sit in our cars and wait. It's illegal for us to pump.
I went to an internship once from someone that was not in New Jersey, but someone was from New Jersey, and they did not know how to pump their own gas.
Yep, I went to school in Pennsylvania, and it was a wake up call. You're like the first time driving over state lines. So anyway, she's waiting, and then we get a great uncredited Brad Dourif as a stutterer, which is like a nod to his character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who like doing I listened to audio commentary today, and they were like, oh, he said he would never play a stutterer again. Like he was nominated for an Oscar for his One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, so he does play a stutterer again. It's a fun role. He's creepy. She's not listening. He tries to warn her. He sees someone in the back, but he can't because of the stutter. She gets in. She gets slashed.
Yeah, definitely our first red herring of the film.
Yeah.
There's a lot of red herrings in this movie.
And, yeah, there is.
ton of them. And I think that's one of the things this movie actually gets right is that I honestly, well, spoiler alert, everyone,
Yeah,
the first time I watched it, of course,
sure.
I did not expect Rebecca Gayheart to be the killer until I
She,
was like, what? What's
yeah,
crazy?
they really wait. I mean, you wait till the last like 15 minutes of the movie for that reveal, which,
You think she's been kidnapped by the killer?
yeah, which is long. And listening to the commentary, the director or writer, I lost like who was talking at a certain point, even though the director is Australian, and um, but still, uh, he was like everything else. He'd be like, that's a homage to this and
Oh,
this, like everything in this movie. Um, and it was kind of interesting too to listen to a lot of it. And I have the the Shout Factory copy of this is really a good piece of physical media. There's a lot of special features. Um, I could have sworn, like just watching this is something that got hacked up, like from a script write, and then that's what we saw, like kind of like Scream, like in Scream 3. It's not. They are
yeah.
very like the guy wrote it. He was a first time writer, and uh, they loved it. And the person came in to clean the script up, said it was great, and just added a couple jokes, and that's like what they're going with.
Yeah.
Um, so and then it's a first time director too, and it's kind of cool how fun fact, how he got to direct this. He made his own. Speaking of, I Know You Did Last Summer, he made his own. He was in Australia. He made a trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer with his own actors. Cut the trailer together. Is all styled. It uses that nice warp
Uh-huh.
face that Alicia Dewitt, not Alicia, that Rebecca Gayheart's in at the end when she, and he cut that together. And then this Phoenix, I think, was the one who produced it. We're like, yeah, this guy, so guy cut a trailer, never made a movie
Interesting.
to
That's
make
fine.
it. Yeah. Um, but so we're there, and then we cut to the Friends set of because the coffee shop of these kids
Yeah.
sitting around, and it just reminds me of the Friends set. I
I was
don't
about to
know.
say, very friends of them, yes.
Yeah, and they're hanging out, and oh, actually no. Before that, we get a very sexual Tara Reid
Oh yeah, the
pursuit,
radio, yes,
and
yes. I
truth
love
why
Terry.
uh yeah, this is pre American Pie, post Big Lebowski Tara Reid too,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Very early Tara Reid, and she's great.
yeah, and she's like having fun with it, and she's doing like a sex hotline, which is really funny because it's just college radio, and I'm like,
Right.
okay, and she's kind of acting like it's like it is a video podcast. She's acting like a podcast. She's jerking off the microphone, but then she has two microphones, which is makes
What?
makes no sense, but it's fun. So, but then I believe we cut to the kids in a coffee shop, and they're talking about the urban legends, I believe,
Mhm.
because there's a class. The big class on campus is urban legend, which I wish I could take that class.
Right?
And we're introduced to our cast of characters, which it is such a good cast. We
It is late
have,
90s, early aughts, perfection.
yeah, we already mentioned Alicia DeWitt, Rebecca Gayheart, Joshua Jackson, who has the blonde hair because he had to
It,
still do reshoots for
it's
Cruel
yeah,
Intentions,
oh yeah, Quilton is right.
and he's great in this movie too, as just like the sleazy friend.
The early
Yeah,
kill, sleazy friend.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Michael Rosenbaum, who was doing his best. God, what's his name? Stu from Scream.
Oh, yeah, right,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
he's doing his
Matthew Lillard.
he's doing his best Matthew Lillard impression. And those are our kids.
Yes.
By kids, I mean they all look 30.
It's early aughts. It's not
It's
late
early
90s,
on,
early
but
aughts, you know.
I don't know if you felt this. Like, neither of us are like, you know, what I mean, we're not in our early 20s, or but we're not that old, but we're not that young. And I'm
Right.
like, I still feel like I look younger than these people who are probably younger than me doing
Right.
those roles. I think it's just the 90s aesthetic.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so, all right. So yeah, no, anything about the coffee shop, because it's really just an introduction. It's a good introduction.
And I will say that writing wise, this is a really positive for the writers of this film is that you really got a sense of who each of these characters were in this very short scene.
Yeah.
Got Alicia Dewitt is very soft and kind of just goes along with everybody. Rebecca Gayheart, while in hindsight, yeah, she seems a little like she's moving this conversation along.
She's like spunky.
Yes.
That's like and Jared Leto comes in and like, Rebecca Gayheart makes it obvious she has a crush on him, and he's super serious journalist, like way too serious for college journalism.
Doesn't he say almost one of the college Pulitzers?
Yeah, and it's like, all right, man, like because the campus is Pendleton.
Yes,
is that right?
Yes,
Pendleton. And what's really fun Easter egg about that, and I wasn't able to get the translation, but the crest. So the crest in Latin, which once again, it's even Google it isn't there, but it translates to the best friend did it, which is such a fun
that is
that's a production. Yeah. So
she did.
and she did do it. That's what I wanted to bring up. So Natalie is our final girl and our protagonist. And earlier when the girl dies, we have no relation, and there's kind of revealed this girl had died and everything. I'm jumping around a little bit. Yeah. My one question is, if she wanted to keep it secret that she didn't know this girl, right? I know this is jumping there.
Yeah.
Why'd they go to the same college?
Right. And
like it's like you had an accident together. You didn't do what I know you did last time. You didn't murder someone together. I mean, you kind of did, but like it's
you didn't cover it up.
Yeah. So that scratched my head, but I'm skipping around, and then we get a cut to the urban legend class, and it's taught by another Robert Englund. This movie's riddled with great horror, character actors and icons.
Another great red herring in this film, Robert. I was convinced it was Robert Englund.
You thought it was going to be Robert Englund?
Well, until they found all the stuff in it, and okay, that's too easy. That's too much.
This is a movie that I remember watching as a kid, either rental, but also being terrified. So it still scares me to hell. And one of my biggest fears is Bloody Mary. And I just remember that from this movie.
But she says, yeah.
And I either turned it off or finished watching it,
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like this movie was on USA a lot.
Oh, definitely. This is a very, you could easily cut this to make it safe for television.
Well, that was a big thing. They didn't want gore in this movie. So,
this was it feels like this is really, of course, trying to replicate the magic that was Scream and its sequels, but it also felt like it was trying to mimic a little bit of I Know What You Did Last Summer, because
it definitely was
of the fact that because they both were very popular movies. But I Know What You Did Last Summer has very little gore and blood in it.
I'm going to give I Know What You Did Last Summer another watch after just mentioning it so many times. It's interesting to hear that because, like I said, I listened to commentary and it was kind of funny because it was either the writer or the director, and I think it was the writer being like, "It's great. Scream gave us all these movies were able to get made because of Scream."
Yes, save the franchise or save the genre.
Yeah. And I want to say the director was like, yeah, but it bothers me that every time someone talks about my movie, it's just compared to it. I want to think, well, it's very comparable, especially they steal from. They literally have actors from Scream 2 in it, Joshua Jackson and
Rebecca Gayheart.
Rebecca Gayheart, you're right. She was a sorority girl. So and then especially with Scream 2, they're both in college, and then even Scream 3 in Urban Legends, The Final Cut, the sequel,
which is
or in film school.
Yes, exactly. And I will say, I would hope that this director has since kind of, or writer or whatever, has come around to saying that being compared to one of the best horror franchises of all time is not a bad thing.
I think he did. Like, it wasn't like said, I don't think in jest. It was just kind of said, and I was like, that's an odd thing to put on a commentary, you know?
Yeah, like
The
I mean, I wish I was compared to like one of the best people of all time. Like that would be
Yeah.
great.
That would be nice. So speaking of Robert Englund, it's also cool to see another movie I did on this podcast recently was called Jack Brooks Monster Slayer, and that has a Robert Englund as a professor in it, and he's actually like not the villain. He's the entity that the evil gets through.
Okay.
I don't know. You got it's a fun movie, but it's similar. Like doing the lecture, hamming it up. I love when we see a Robert Englund show up in these tinier horror movies, and it's so funny that he does the Pop Rocks and Coke. I mean, they use a Pepsi, but
I've never heard that before. Like I remember watching this, I was like, the first time, I was like, I've done that.
yeah, that was always the Mikey and like I feel, you know,
I likes it.
yeah. And it's such a dramatic scene too because like you're watching him, like no one would think he's just dying. What was funny about it, the DVD had the TV spots, so I watched them. And one of the sections of the TV spots, like the 15-second ads, were Pop Rocks and Coke, and showed that scene, and then it would go to like a little like description of the movie, like voiceover. And they did that for like 3 of the urban legends, like
Right,
like,
right. I love.
and I'm like, Pop Rocks and Coke, like it's such the least dramatic one to be advertising your movie with.
Right. Yeah, especially like because even when because they do end up using Pop Rocks and not Coke, but like
Oh yeah,
in the death zone, maybe we should skip ahead.
nah, that's my favorite kill of the movie.
Oh, it's so great. And I'm like, but I'm also like, you could have just put the drain like you didn't need the Pop Rocks.
Well,
Pop
we
Rocks
really got to
gave it
tie
some
it.
color.
Some of the kills are a little thin with the urban legend
Right.
motif. And my one issue, and I'm actually glad I listened to the commentary because I earlier mentioned Bloody Mary. Actually, so this ties in the next thing. The girls like go to an old building to say Bloody Mary. When I like, come on, that's you say the name. I mean, it varies 3 or 5 times depending who you're in front of the mirror with the lights off, not in front of a door.
Right.
And that I'm like, who advised that? And then finding out the director actually had no idea what the urban legend was.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that
makes
really
sense. That tracks.
So my fake memory, my Mandela effect of that is, I thought there was someone doing that, and they killed them in a way of like popping out the window about the mirror,
Oh, yeah.
just like something I'd made up in my head.
Yeah. Well, there is a third urban legend.
Yeah, I know.
It's not very good, but they do
Spiders.
they use Bloody Mary in that too. We're watching that.
I remember seeing that probably middle school or something.
Yeah,
and like I said, being scared of the concept of it because it scares me. But I vividly remember that movie has really, really, really bad CGI spiders.
Yes.
So another thing the killer also failed to mention so far is it wears a parka.
Yes.
And this movie I think would be much more moodier if they were able to get, so they wanted to do it in the snow or an ice storm, and that's why that parka is there. So they just kept it from the first draft of the script.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. And I think you'd have a little bit more atmosphere
if it had that. Because I mean, you think about in those like that time frame of slashers, you have the iconic Ghostface, of course.
Yeah.
Then you have the iconic Slicker.
Yeah,
fisherman. And then this one just kind of feels like he doesn't fit. There's
no there's no iconography there, right? It's just a
t-shirt
for like I feel like my wife has that winter coat that has the fur around it, right?
Yeah, there is a scene later on which we'll get to, but I do think that having the coat makes it a little more effective. But
it works. I think it's because it hides the face. One thing I really like what they did with this movie, which again, whatever, who cares? We're jumping around. At the end, when you get a phone call, like it was when she's talking to the killer's talking to
Natalie. No, to
Michael Rosenbaum.
Yes,
they actually used Rebecca Gayheart, and like hid the voice, and you could hear a feminine voice in it, which
Yeah.
compared to Scream that this does better. I know the Scream voice is iconic. Those voice changers, like you could still hear the
Other
like
person's
I
voice.
I have a
Right.
very deep voice, so maybe not my voice, but like probably like a woman's voice.
Like, yeah, like,
Probably like scrambled up a little bit, right? Like I
yeah,
remember the Scream masks, like it didn't always come out as
right.
the
Like,
whole.
yeah, and like Mrs. Loomis. You're gonna hear Mrs. Loomis's voice
Yeah.
because
So
you know.
another thing I want to point out, just sorry, we're still in the beginning of this movie, is the girl who dies in the beginning. His name is what's her name? Natalie?
Yes. No, Natalie's the
No, Natalie's. Anyway, her last name is Mancini, which I think is a nod to Don Mancini from Child's Play.
yes.
I just thought that was cool. So this movie's riddled. Speaking of another riddled thing, Natalie Alicia Dewitt does come home to her dorm, and she has the gothiest roommate of all time, goth for
Yeah.
goth, Danielle Harris, another horror icon,
Yes.
and she's just surfing the net.
She sure is.
God.
But wait, before we get there, I do want to mention that I do think another really great red herring that this film uses is the whole backstory of the previous murders that happened, because I kept expecting something to. There's something with that. There's something that is going to happen with this whole like urban legend of
Oh
this film.
yeah, I'm sorry. It's always a forgotten thing whenever I talk about this movie. The
Yeah,
previous Hall massacre.
because that's the hall that they're standing in front of when she says Bloody Mary
Yeah.
5 times.
Thank you for bringing that up because it's definitely like a big point of the plot of this
Yes.
movie to make things happen because um it's such a it's it's a fun movie and it's such a ridiculous like premise that everyone on campus is so into urban legends. And like I think what by time they're probably from 19 to 21,
Right.
college age 18, like half of us are like into that stuff and talking about it, but it's not our whole personalities.
Right.
I don't know if you were like this, but when I was in middle school or in elementary school, like those are the books I would go like to the library and read all the spooky like
Mhm.
urban legend books or like we're in Jersey, so like Jersey Devil, they're full like books of like
Yeah.
I never read them, like look at the pictures and get scared. Like
Right.
that's the class they're taking,
Yeah, exactly. So, like the whole,
which is
call from inside the house, which comes from film, but not, it is kind of
um
legends as well.
yeah, I think that one and I was gonna ask you what your favorite urban legend was a little later, but that one I feel like is more like the one of my favorites is the clown statue. I don't know if you're familiar with that urban legend. So that's basically I guess that's not the call from inside the house. Call there is a call kind of that's like when a stranger calls, you know.
Hmm.
No, clown statue, which would have been great usage of this. It's a babysitter, and she's watching kids, and there's a clown statue, and she's really creeped out by it. So she puts the kids to bed, and she calls the parents, and she's like, "Yo, can I move the clown statue? It's really bothering me. Like, we don't have a clown statue." So it turns out to be like a catatonic midget clown that or little person clown so Google it. There's some good YouTube made of it.
That's
Um,
crazy. Yeah, no, yeah. My favorite urban legend is probably utilized in this film, and we'll get to it, but it's uh,
oh, I didn't know what you were going to say.
Derek's kill of being hung above the top.
Oh no, that wouldn't be okay.
Yeah, no,
That,
I love that whole ultimatum of you don't know what is above you, but
uh,
really it's like because I'm such an overthinker of things. I would like
would you drive away? You're on a date and like go off to check this stuff. Would you drive away from
probably
that or
probably and then say sorry later.
peace out?
But like my fight or flight reflexes are very real and they're usually flight.
Uh, I want to say I'd probably fight, but I would probably flee. I'd probably flee. Sorry.
You don't know what's on top of your car. I mean,
Yeah,
things.
that one, it's just good. That one's so fucking good. So we do find out the girl dies. Natalie's we reveal Natalie knew her, but she's lying about it. We kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
And then Joshua Jackson, blonde hair, goes to console her, but he just wants to get in her pants.
Yes. I love when he turns on the radio and the Scream theme plays. It's perfect.
It's a great bit, and I think it probably holds up better today because not as many people of a certain age are going to get the reference. So it's not as like tongue in cheek to like me or you, right?
Right.
So, and then, so he's there, and like Trent was just mentioning, she turns him down, and I do think it's like, it's a good scene because it doesn't go off like so creepy as like portrayed wrongly. I think the scene could just completely fail.
Well, and one of the things I really like about this scene is that it doesn't let him off the hook, even though he's not being creepy. He's still being an asshole.
No, he's being a creep and an asshole. I just mean like it doesn't feel dirty. Where I'm like, that scene was scary, but for a different reason.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad it didn't go to the point of like
sexual assault.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. Like in the wrong hands. Like I've probably mentioned more than once on this show. If Rob Zombie directed this movie, that would just happen, and he'd be like, isn't it metal?
Yeah, and I'd be like, no, Rob, stop. Just someone stop Rob Zombie, please. I've said this many times, but I do like that it doesn't. While he doesn't go the full extreme, she's not like, oh, it's fine, you're good, it's all good now, we got it figured out. No, she's like, no, dude, take me the fuck home.
That's why I like her final girl a little bit, though, because she is like strong-willed like that. But they're all strong-willed at this point.
That's the one scene that I'm like, I'm with you, Natalie, and the rest of them, like, I forget about you.
So, but he leaves to go take a piss, and he gets hung up on a tree, and the killer wraps the rope around the car. So essentially, Natalie, when she drives away, is doing the hanging.
Yeah.
And like Trent said, the feet scraping on top. It's a very cool kill. And then Natalie gets back. She actually sees it. She like goes out, looks at it.
And she goes in reverse, and he falls out. He falls on top of her, essentially.
Yeah. So she gets away, and then she goes back to Central Perk, and she tells her friends in the coffee shop, and they're like, "That's what I don't have the names next to me. Sorry. That's just Dawson's Creek, man. That's just Derek. He's a prankster. He went to Killington. Like, we'll be fine." And I don't know how that. She's like, okay. She's kind of like, okay, I know what I saw. And then this is when the rest of the movie then becomes her trying to be like, there's someone killing these people.
Listen to me. And does she go that night to Loretta Devine, the police officer?
Oh yeah. So that's another. I failed to mention Loretta Devine, who's playing Reese. I love her character. She's so much fun.
She's the final girl.
Well, her personality made them write more of her character in it.
And like, she got put in the sequel.
Yeah. And it was weird. It was interesting too, because they were like listening to the commentary and like some of the IMDb trivia. They're like, yeah, like, I don't know where this would have fit into the story, but like they wrote that character to have like lesbian sex scenes.
Like, I love it, but that's how you would put that in the movie.
I was more wondering, where does that? They're like, yeah, earlier in the movie, like, and I'm like, where does that fit in the cop character of this?
Having sex in the security office,
especially like 90s. It wouldn't be like she casually had a girlfriend, you know?
Right. It would have been a big ooh.
Yeah, like, oh, she's probably getting down with one of the students, and but anyway,
like that. Yeah,
it was such a interesting insight because we know like scripts change.
Right. I'm glad it did the way.
Yeah,
I saw what I saw.
She's used in the movie very well. Like just peppered in. Like the
you meet her and she's got her gun out. She's copying.
Pam Grier's Coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, she's watching Coffee.
Right.
Pam Grier, and which is great because you get a call back to like that the iconic. So this is where I'm not sure if it's Coffee or Foxy Brown.
It's Foxy Brown. That's her favorite character. She always
she's watching Coffee.
Okay.
I don't, maybe they couldn't get the rights to the but either way, she's watching blaxploitation films,
right?
And she then she references later, which fucking rules. But so, and if you haven't, anyone listening, it's not that, but watch Jackie Brown, because Pam Grier is excellent in that movie.
Great, I just love her.
So, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wiki just so we're on track. Okay,
yeah, I know we've jumped around a lot.
Yeah, no, we jumped around. It's perfect. I want to talk about other kills and all this stuff, but I'm trying to stay on. No,
I think Danielle Harris is the next killer.
So yeah, Danielle Harris. We meet her. We already said that we meet her roommate, but then she goes back that night, and once again she's distressed, but she's kind of like over it now. You know, she's ready to go to bed, and we've already seen her roommate like banging in the open, like egregiously. Where it's just a show,
right?
But this time she sees her and she's being strangled, and you know what, Natalie? I think like this is the one where like really have to take suspension of disbelief, because I'm like, there could have been some better sign of her to be like, look at me, listen.
I mean, she doesn't turn the light on, so you don't know how much visibility there is for Natalie in that scene. So that helps me just,
it's
and disbelief a little bit.
She basically, now we're in territory of, I think as audiences, okay, the killer is just fucking with specifically Natalie.
Yes.
Because she wakes up and her roommate's dead, and there's another urban legend.
It's probably the most gory part of this film is when
that and the dog.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That so on the wall. This is one of my favorite urban legends that's in the movie. You should have turned the lights on.
Yeah. Aren't you glad you didn't?
Aren't you glad you didn't turn the lights on?
Which makes it so like.
Oh. Am I getting
like shit?
Am I getting my urban legend mixed up? That's also Humans Can Lick too, right?
I don't know that one.
Oh God!
I've always heard the "Aren't you glad you didn't turn the lights on?"
Oh, okay. So I thought they were the same. Okay, all right. This is great. This is great stuff. So, Humans Can Lick 2 is a kid, or however you want to tell it, kid, girl, whatever. They put their hand under the bed to let their dog lick their hand, and no comfort there. And then essentially they do that one day, and then they go to the bathroom, and there's the thing of, I actually think glad you didn't turn the lights on, but like Humans Can Lick 2, and it was really a deranged person under the bed. You should look. There's probably great visual representation of these on YouTube.
Terrifying. Okay, yeah.
There's some. I was I was big into reading getting myself scared as hell as a kid. So aren't you glad you didn't turn the lights on? Another urban legend. Now we kind of got a serial killer on campus, and then at this point, Jared Leto's already written a full front page story, and the campus wants to shut it down because Pendleton's the #1 safest school in America. It kind of looks like Princeton University a little bit. I know they used University of Toronto. I live near Princeton. I live near Princeton. That's kind of why I bring that up. So it has a similar feel of a campus.
It is very very
regal,
prestigious. Yes,
the people in sucks, but they have a good record shop in that town. But you would think they'd have good bars. The full insight, you think they're terrible, all terrible bars.
Oh no, that sucks.
Yeah. So, but so this Wikipedia is hurting my brain.
She tries to tell them that Danielle Harris's character, which I can't think of her name right now, but that she was murdered, and they're like, no, she was not. It was suicide, and she was like, I mean, she was. This is so early. It's like late '90s, early 2000s. They were like, "Are you aware your roommate was depressed?" And she said she painted half the room black. And it was like, I mean, way to generalize. Everyone who likes the color black.
That's just her goth depressed, goth for goth. And they try to make Danielle Harris as big of a bitch as they could, which was really hard to do.
Because she sounds so sweet. But I did I liked her being able to be like, let me be exact opposite of what everyone thinks I should be.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and then we have then they do get in the investigation, and it's kind of where Natalie does in fact let the Paul's kind of the only one that's in on it, but he really just wants his like journalism integrity and blah blah blah. And they find out that the massacre was real that you mentioned earlier, so that's a big part of this. And we do have another red herring,
the janitor. That was probably my biggest, other than after I was like, not Robert Englund, I was like, okay, it's the janitor because he is creepy as fuck.
Yeah, he's the doomsday mouth, and so they find out, him and Professor Lexler were the only survivors.
And don't they say that the gas attendant was already arrested for the first girl's murder?
Yes, that is going on right now. Because
so they've already solved that.
They're all like, no, we got that.
Right.
And then
we find out that they were the only survivors, and so it really puts the limelight on them because you're like, there's got to be a connection, right?
Mm-hmm. So now we're at 3 murders.
Yep.
I'm just gonna quickly. Dean Adams gets murdered quickly. The Dean does. Mm-hmm. He gets the ankle slash. Someone's under your car.
Terrifying.
Yeah, that always reminds me just of the gruesome version of that from Hostel.
Oh, I can't watch those movies.
Okay, yeah. There's like this is just an Achilles. It's very like, but it's Hostel, so you like see it.
Right. No, it reminds me of the original Pet Sematary when the little boy is like
under the
yeah.
So we then go to. I'm gonna just jump up a little bit here. There's a party going on to honor the massacre. It should be a fucking Halloween party. Once again, I love theme parties. It's so hard to get that many people on board with the themed party.
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
But they're all in their different. There's a lot of little Easter eggs of what people are wearing and whatnot for like urban legend nods. We got a fun little scene of this nerdy guy talking to Tara Reid about Love the Roller Coaster, that screams real. And hers is the one, her murder, when hers happened, it's supposed to be that scream. The recording. Because it's only a death in the movie that truly doesn't have like an obvious urban legend to it.
Right.
She just falls off of the staircase. And I think she gets slashed, right?
No, she's this
sorry.
is why I like Tara Reid's character, because number one, she puts her boyfriend in his place, and I'm always a fan of that. But like, and then she goes, no, she falls and like breaks her legs. Essentially.
Oh yeah.
And then because
I promise I watched this last night, and
I did.
I just.
I mean, tuck and roll, girl, tuck and roll. But she landed straight on her legs, and essentially, I think broke both of them. But she still gets away from him,
which is great
her.
because you'd have that like with the fall, and it made the comment when I was watching it. You'd have that energy to at least get away because it's not that big of a drop.
No, right. You're hurt, you're injured, but you're not dead.
So
and she gets back upstairs, and then we cut back to the party because I think her boyfriend dies before she does.
I forget her boyfriend fucking dies, and then her boyfriend's
the Drano.
Yeah, her boyfriend's my favorite kill of the Drano. So that's happening, and that's why I think Tara Reid's death is supposed to be the scream, because we hear her scream and it cuts into the music.
Right.
So that one's a little stretch.
Because they're listening to this whole thing, because they have, for some reason, have her radio station playing at this party.
Yeah,
and she's still on mic.
That classic 24-hour campus college radio station.
Natalie hears it, and Natalie goes, because that's when she dies. Natalie gets into the bottom lobby area, and Tara Reid sees her and gets up and starts screaming for her. The killer comes in and hits her.
Don't you feel that her radio voice, if it was a little more in the movie, would be almost like the Wet Hot American Summer bit, where it's actually talking to no one? The kids, it's not plugged into anything.
That would be funny.
This movie might have got away with it. Like, listening to the commentary, it almost sounded like they wanted to add a lot more gags in it, and they tried to tame themselves a little bit. So we're at the party, and I like before we get to the Drano kill, like Alicia Dewitt and Jared Leto, they're getting involved, and we have found out at this point, by the way, I think a major oversight is the cover up of her character, of that she knew the girl. They played a print. They were doing the headlights, urban legend, flash the lights, and they killed someone basically,
Right.
and in an accident. And that's why earlier I kind of said it scratches my head of why this would be the big secret that I don't know her. But as my wife pointed out, who the fuck brings a yearbook to college?
Right.
I think I said I remember a couple girls bringing their yearbooks, but
I don't remember any of that.
I kind of do, but I could be making that up, like.
I know I showed it to me because I might have made some shady comments, but
but either way, her and Jared Leto are like bonding over the connecting, and then the most unrealistic part of this movie is Rebecca Gayheart walks in with 2 glass beer mugs. No college party would have those beautifully crisp Cheers style beer mugs.
Solo cups.
As a professional drinker, that was the most egregious part. I'm not a professional drinker, but I love the anyway. I'm just joking there, but she comes in and it has been established that she likes Jared Leto. She's all like, "Oh, what the hell?" And then we cut to
Oh yeah, because
yeah, this is all at the same party, so it's good.
Timelines are weird in this moment in the movie for me, but
that's why I kind of like once get confused with some of this stuff because they are weird. I'm gonna jump back. We're at Michael Rosenbaum, who really is the funnest part because he is the Matthew Lillard of this movie, and the funnest friend because he kind of like Rebecca Gayheart, like knows what movie he's in, and he's hamming it up and he's playing this guy.
That's why I think Loretta Devine, Rebecca Gayheart, that dude that you said, I can't think of his name right now, but
Matthew Lillard.
Yeah,
not Matthew Lillard.
Right.
Yeah, Michael Rosenbaum, who's Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Yes. They all know what movie they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie and oh God, what's his name? Jared Leto. I'm saying character and actor names.
Yeah, it's funny you say their names and I say their actors' names all the time.
Yeah, I get them mixed up all the time. But they don't seem to know.
No,
that this is fun.
Yeah, and it is a fun movie. Like the movie lets you know it's fun. But Michael Rosenbaum gets this call, and he's like, "Oh, it's coming from inside the house," and he thinks it's Derek.
Because on the
Joshua
ID it
Jackson
says
messing with him. They never left.
Right.
And the most like out of left field part of this movie is he's like, "What about your dog?" And then they put the dog in this fucking microwave because it's an urban legend that I was not that familiar with, of that the old lady dried her dog out in the microwave.
I have not either. But because he says, when he's on the phone, he says, "Oh, I know this one. This is the one where the call is from the house." And the dude's like, or the girl, know who the killer is. But anyways, Rebecca Gayheart is like, "No, this is the one where the old lady dried her dog in the microwave."
Yes, and it's great. And that's what we were talking earlier. Like, I like how they did the voice. They had her do it with the thing, and that's right.
Also, another thing that's weird, kind of a red flag here. He just left the kitchen. Oh, he's in the kitchen when the phone rings.
Trent, the
logical,
the logic and the continuity of this movie don't quite work. Especially like I just started doing that for this show. I just started like watching the commentaries.
Right.
And I've been listening to like podcasts almost while I work. I'm recording where I work. I work from home. And they sounded like a lot of things were like great one take, like they didn't have time to do a lot like retakes or
things. Yeah. Like you should have gotten a call in the living room or in the bathroom or somewhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess they could have
put it in on 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It was an explosion.
And there is nothing in that microwave that looks doggish.
Yeah. it's gruesome. It's definitely the most gruesome thing. And he's like, oh no, and he's running around, and then he gets thrown into another room, the bathroom, and basically takes a
But to
really
vomit.
cool looking metal beer bong and puts it in the mouth with Drano and Pop Rocks, and he has a very like scene.
Yes.
And yeah, that one I like that. I like that aesthetically, like how it was edited, and then a good callback to our like history class.
Yes.
Uh,
Because then after that is when we go to Tara Reid at the
yeah.
radio station and her death.
Okay, so whatever, whoever is listening, you know what you're in for. Um, and then this is when party goer, Paul, they're responsible. Yeah, that all happens. They leave the party because they
Yes, because
realize.
Paul tells Natalie to stay there,
Mhm,
and he's going to go figure this out. Red
yeah,
flag.
but
And then Natalie hears Tara Reid, and she's like, "No, I've got to go help my friend."
yeah,
And
and
then
then
when we
they
think Tara Reid's dead, she sees Rebecca Gayheart, which
yeah.
it
Thank you, thank you for putting that in the order it needs.
just made sense to me. I was like, "Ding!"
Yeah, um, and they go through, and then they find like solace in the janitor. Or am I jumping way too?
No, well, we did miss earlier because this is a good point that before the party, they sneak into Robert England's office and
Yes,
find that like hidden room with like
yeah,
the
because
act.
Robert England really disappears after his class.
Yes, because he's
This is
dead
Robert England.
when Reese finds him. Um, but they find so Paul gets kicked off the newspaper. Um, I can't remember what happens to Natalie, but something negative. But anyway, because then after this scene, she goes to
So they go.
Paul's apartment or
Yeah.
dorm room or whatever it is.
So I got it. So Natalie soon finds Paul and Brenda on campus. Paul is convinced that Wexler is responsible, and he escorts them to the car. They stop at the gas station while Paul's inside. Natalie and Brenda find out Wexler's mutated body in the trunk.
Yes.
And then the two women flee. And now I'm just reading the Wikipedia, so I really am apologize for anyone listening. I'm just trying to. They become separated, and Natalie that's when they flag down the janitor, and he picks him up, and like once again he's a creepy guy, but he
He
means
only
well.
picks Natalie up
Yeah.
because
Oh, not then.
they split
She
because Rebecca
disappears.
Gayhart's going to do her own thing now.
Yeah, she's going to light all those fucking candles. Uh, I will get to it in 2 seconds. Um, yeah, and then we do get a really fun, but once again, this movie don't make much sense, and there's a reason for it not to make much sense. But we get a great body maze when they're inside the burned down the massacre hall.
Yes. Yes.
All the bodies you've seen dead kind of pop up. Joshua Jackson's there.
Just to go around him, which because he's on like a meat hook.
Yeah,
A lot of meat hook in the hallway of the dorm. But
so it's definitely a cop out, but I like. So they explain because the question is, and we've revealed it. Rebecca Gayhart's the killer.
yes. Well, and right before this or during this, there's a cut of Reese because we go back to Reese.
Yeah.
And she finds Tara Reid's body
Mhm.
at the radio station. So now she knows stuff's going down. Um, and then she is trying to call for help, and they're like, "Well, with the storm, we might not get to you for." And she's like, "There are dead bodies. Can we please have some urgency here?"
It's perfect. It's perfect.
She's the only character that makes sense.
Yeah. And then you find out she's like, the goddamn cops do nothing.
No, they do nothing. They do nothing
And
to
she
help
calls
her.
it out, which is so refreshing.
Right.
Because she's a security guard and like a wannabe cop, but she's about justice.
Yes, she's about helping the people. And I mean, to be fair, she shouldn't believe Natalie when Natalie was like, he died.
Oh no, they caught him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is flimsy at sometimes. And then we get like we go to the hall and she gets up there and Natalie is like distraught and scared and she's at the final moment and she sees Brenda chained up on the bed. And this is when I bring up the goddamn candles, the number one pet peeve of mine in movies and TVs.
There's a lot of candles.
Is who bought and lit all of these candles. they're not on plates. It's a fire hazard. Like, and I'm talking about
a rundown dorm, which could very easily catch on
dude.
fire.
I'm talking about everywhere. It's just like I call it out. Everything we see, everything I say. Like Friends, when Chandler proposes to Monica, got a lot of candles. It looks beautiful.
Maybe that's what they were trying to like make a little funny pun on. I don't know.
No, they definitely weren't. But it was just a cool look. It's just a cool look.
Yeah.
I'm just being an ass.
It's not practical, but it does look pretty.
It looks cool. But she's on the bed in like a ritualistic way.
Yes.
Like
you think she's the victim, and you're going to save her.
And then we get her coming back to life. Great turn, and she fucking sells this harder than anyone. Like she's a really, really fun killer, and it's really reminiscent of. Did you guys cover or did you guys watch? Is new, a little more modern. The Loved Ones at all?
That's yes. We haven't yet, but that's on our list.
Okay, so her, and then Lola, the killer in that movie, same energy. Like they both they know the assignment.
And what I love about Rebecca Gayheart, especially in this role and other roles, she is such an underrated character actress. She's great. Think about this role in both of its incarnations compared to her role in Scream 2.
Yeah.
High Pledge.
She plays a great bitch. It's she's good. It is like it is unfortunate that she had a real life accident, and then like it kind of parallels what this movie's about. So it's like I'd only bring that up because of the oddity of like, so sorry for being a downer there.
Yeah. So and the one thing I love about this, well, I don't love the one thing I kind of criticize about because I'm all for female killers. I love it. And I love that her motivation is revenge, and she just wants to get revenge on Natalie, and I love that. I wish there wasn't the boyfriend added into it.
No, and then you bring it up, and we're getting to the gun's drawn, and she's ready, and she's like she wants to do the urban legend of cutting the spleen of the kidneys out and putting her on ice.
Yes.
To Rebecca, no, I'm sorry, to Natalie. And what really stops it all is Jared Leto comes in, and because she's in love with him, which, it is an exhausting trope on that.
You find out her boyfriend is the one that Natalie and her friend killed.
Yeah.
So it's like Rebecca's character is completely just wrapped up in like
she's in revenge, but then she's also like, we'll make a great couple. We could do it all, and it's very. It all falls apart at the last minute when you bring that up.
Yeah, and and I feel like as a killer, she loses something, and I think that's something that kind of production companies in Hollywood kind of fall victim to is that, I mean, women can just be psychos, like they have to have a reason.
No, and I think it's it's a good point, dude. Because
there's not many female.
I didn't think of it this way, but in all times I've seen it, but you're bringing it up. I'm like, that is a good point because she's just being crazy. Like she could just, and it's great. And I love movies at this time too because they don't try hard to make us sympathize or anything. And she was half wrong and she's on revenge. It was like, no, she's fully lost it. She doesn't need any of that other stuff. I just feel like the Jared Leto is more of a Deus Ex Machina kind of.
And I think they're trying to give him something to play on, but
I
don't need him.
He's really not needed in the movie.
Natalie and Reese can handle the rest of this movie, and Rebecca Gayheart can handle the rest.
She's not needed in this movie.
No.
So that happens, and the fight goes out to the bridge on the water.
Yeah, well, because they say so back to the whole like Scream mentality of like. Okay, we've killed her because she flies out. Reese shoots her, and she goes out the window. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, we're safe. And then for some reason, Natalie and Paul are driving somewhere. I don't know where they're driving to.
And they're just driving away.
Right. And she's in the back of the car to give us a bookend. And they wreck, and she flies off into the river. And
Yeah, and then it cuts, and we actually don't know what happens until we see um it cuts to another group of friends sitting around, and they're all dressed very funnily, and they're all 40.
right. Oh,
Uh,
they were worse than the actual. Like,
oh yeah, no,
yeah. But I was
these
like,
ones
none of y'all
are
are in
like,
college, or you're non-trad. You're
and
non.
then they were the commentary, which was the writer, director, and Michael Rosenbaum. And Michael Rosenbaum, who's like a funny guy, he was like, "What's with the outfits?" And they were like, "That's just like how we thought people might dress in the future a little bit." And it was like, okay, but the reveal there, let alone they're in the coffee shop, um, is telling the story of the events that just happened, and we reveal that who else? Rebecca Gayheart, Natalie, is with that group, and she's still alive. That's how I look at it. That it's the same character. She got away. She did the kills, and she's on the loose. And we kind of get our answer in the sequel.
Right, right. But yeah, and I think that well, the sequel as a whole has a ton
I
of
actually
issues.
I have it coming tomorrow on Blu-ray because I realized I didn't own it,
Yeah,
so I'm gonna
it,
probably watch it this weekend.
it's fun. There's some really fun performances. I do enjoy that there's an actual queer character, which love that.
I haven't seen it. Haven't seen it in a couple of years, so I don't remember the character.
It's I want to say it's Eva Mendes who plays her.
Oh yeah, it
But
wasn't like an offense. Like I always for this time, I always feel like try to differentiate like the offensive queer characters and then just like
the
not
ones that are
characters, but just
there.
like people.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. No, she's
Um,
there and she's a lesbian. And I'm like, get it.
yes, I kind of. Like I said, I'll rewatch it.
It's not
But
terrible, but it's not.
no, it's fine sequel.
Yeah,
Um, so that's Urban Legends. It's I do enjoy the movie. Like I own it.
it's fun.
It's fun. Um, and it's an easy one I have mentioned a few times. Like and throughout this whole podcast, my wife doesn't do horror movies. It's one she could put on and she enjoys and she watches and she laughs and we have a good time watching it. And so I always like a movie like that too
Yeah.
because
And like I said earlier, I think one of the best things about this movie is that I do feel like the vast majority of the people who are in this film, aside from Paul and Natalie, know what movie this is. They're
yeah.
taking it seriously. They're having fun. You've got Tara Reid giving a blowjob to a microphone.
Yeah, I
You know,
wish we had more Tara Reid.
I wanted more. Tara Reid and Reese need to be our final two girls.
I mean, Tara Reid might return today, but she don't look like herself anymore.
She showed up.
Uh, having said that, this was I don't think I mentioned it. This was made for 14 million, and it was a hit. It made $72 million, 72.5 at least Wikipedia says. And to before I ask you for your anything else you want to talk about, final thoughts. Just again, I did write them down. The urban legends that were mentioned through the whole thing, for anyone keeping score, was Killer in the Backseat, Hatchet Man, which is an unnamed killer targeting college campus. That's just Bloody Mary, Pop Rocks and Coke, Boyfriend Murdered, the car one, Guy in the Back Seat, Glad You Didn't Turn on the Lights, Ankle Slash, Roller Coaster of Love, Old Lady Drives the Dog in the Microwave, The Kidney Heist, Call from Inside the House, and a reference of spider eggs in the bubblegum. And I'm sure I'm missing a few, but they really do jam a lot of them in, and that's why I want to see her.
Yeah.
Couple things. Googling it, and I feel like COVID killed this. It was a pop for a remake.
Yes, and even back then, they thought about doing a third movie if the second one was successful, but it was
It wasn't. No,
successful.
in 2020, it was in February 2020, it was announced that we're going to remake this, and I think they started casting, and I feel like COVID killed it. But with this new Scream out, and it looks like it's going to be a hit.
Fingers crossed, y'all. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. It looks like it's going to be a hit. It's probably going to revitalize a lot of these. Hey, what IP do we have?
Yeah, because we just got Candyman, which was a fairly good
I
success.
loved Candyman.
It was a great film, and I think even box office wise, in the middle of a pandemic, did pretty well. You've got Scream coming out. You've had the Chucky series, which was a huge
Yeah,
success.
we got a nice little it wasn't a hit or anything, but anyone listening, The Wrong Turn, it was not Slash, but The Wrong Turn remake was great.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
So we got a nice little revival of like slashers right now.
They're having Hellraisers coming out at some point.
Yeah, and it's cool. There's some cool casting with that. That I'm excited for. I think Urban Legends, I'd like to see it as a series, only because of the format. We could kind of take each episode and focus on a legend and give it a little more long play would benefit. And I'm not a big fan of everything being a series. I just want to make that clear. Like,
I think if you do make it a series, the struggle you would have, which I think it could be done, but I think that you would have to still, because I don't like Monster of the Week series.
Oh, I like Monster of the Weeks. That's
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I like, well, and you could do like Supernatural early seasons did it well, where there was a through line that you continued to follow, but it was kind of Monster of the Week. I can handle those. So
okay.
Something like that.
I would do this more if it was a series. I would do more like the first Scream season we were talking about off camera. Like the slow play, there's a different way to go about it. So what do you, anything we didn't bring up or like final thoughts on this movie that we glossed over, or just
I'm pretty sure I brought it up, but I want to mention that I think this is, other than Scream, because every other series tried to do this to varying success, but I do think this is one of the better examples of red herrings, because you get a ton of them.
Yeah.
You first get the gas attendant, then you get then you kind of you think it could be the professor, and then it could be the janitor, and then you think, oh, it's got to be connected to this previous massacre that happened where they were the only two survivors. At one point, you kind of think it could be Paul. To finally end up being Rebecca Gayheart, I was like, okay, you took me on a journey.
Yeah, it was definitely a good guess who. And I like that word you've been using, the red herrings. And one thing I want to leave this off at as is, because we're talking about post-Scream and this movie being better one. So I did just a quick Google of post-Scream movies.
Right.
So I feel like we mentioned two. And there's one I've never seen. I remember the Blockbuster cover, and it's from the same director, Valentine. There's Denise Richards in it. Never seen it.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I like this better.
And then Bride of Chucky is a post-Scream movie. I'm just reading what they have here. Oh, you know what's one we did fail to mention? I think it's a big one, The Final Destination.
Yeah, it's hard for me because those aren't technically slashers, I don't think.
They have the same structure.
Yeah.
Death is a slasher. This has I love Halloween H2O, but this has Halloween H2O as number one. So
well, and funny because they used a scoring part of Scream they directly used in Halloween H2O.
Oh, I didn't know that. You just brought up one thing that I have a note about that I thought it was. I'm not smart, but I thought it was the smartest thing I ever wrote down. So anyone still listening, this movie's overscored.
Yeah,
I think this movie doesn't have confidence in itself to let scenes be scenes. So they really ran, and it's a good score. Like, it's what it got credit for. I think it was the only thing Roger Ebert gave credit to this movie for. But it's to me, it's overscored. It's like, we're talking here. It doesn't let anyone talk. It's like, all right, and I mentioned the word killer, and then it's like, and it's like, ooh, just let the scene breathe a little bit. That was my one takeaway I meant to mention early. So.
Oh, another scene that I think is really great in this film, and I think I made a comment earlier about the parka being a decent choice, is the scene where Rebecca Gayheart's character is swimming and Natalie is above her and see the person in the parka walk in. And it works to me because I haven't seen anyone else in a parka. If parkas were everywhere, I would have been like, oh, clearly that could be anybody. But
it's a killer.
You think, oh shit, this is the killer, and Natalie's like trying to get her attention. Turns out it's just someone getting in the
That's pool. A really good. We're talking about the parka and everything. It's a really good lazy Halloween costume.
That is true.
It's
You
hot. It's a
very
hot one.
easily do that.
Yeah, it's a sweaty one, but
I mean, yeah.
so no, that's a good note though. I like that pool. We didn't mention the swimming scene. I like that scene.
I mean, it was
So
kind of weird that she took her jacket off and she was already in her swimming suit, but I was like,
hey, you know
What?
how you go to the, and timeline does make sense. 'Cause I was about to say, you know how you go to swimming in September,
Parka.
which in like New England, it's kind of it's not freezing. And at the
Right.
same time, they mention like you're graduating in a couple weeks at one point, and that doesn't make sense also.
Right.
So let's watch
You
this
gotta
movie.
suspend your disbelief a little bit.
You know what? It's a really good. And I use this term a lot on this show. It's a good beer movie.
Yes, it would be like, I'm sure everyone listening, if you want to rewatch this movie, go online, look for Urban Legend drinking games.
Yeah, some drinks, fun
yeah.
with friends, Urban Legend drinking game. And I can make one for you right now. Drink every time. There's an Urban Legend reference, obviously.
Yeah.
Every murder. Every time Jared Leto comes in frame, and you think this fucking asshole.
Every time you're like, Natalie, what the fuck are you doing?
So, yeah, I'm that, I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I don't really I'm trying to think, and this was an interesting one because I kind of remember from choosing this years ago. Like a lot of movies have like a lot of like fun facts and things built in. This is a little thin in its fun facts, which is fine.
Yeah.
Even watching the featurettes of it, Shout Factory broke out, which should just be one documentary, into like 6 really boring interview processes of how they made the movie, and I watched 2 of them. Anyway, having said that, Trent, anything to add? And where can the people find you?
I don't really have anything to add. I think that this has been a fun time. We got a lot discussed. It's a fun movie, y'all. Go watch it if you haven't seen it, and rewatch it if it's been a minute, because it had been a minute for me. Revisiting. I was like, oh yeah, this happened. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. To be fair, Sheree, who is my co-host, is a much better tweeter than I am.
You are both good Twitter follows.
My name on Twitter is Trent Reese 5, Reese, like the candy. And then on Instagram, if you want to follow me again, I post sometimes. I try to. My handle is treese0508. And of course, if you want to follow the podcast, A Nightmare on Fear Street, or wherever you can find podcasts, mostly Nightmare Fierce on Twitter, A Nightmare on Fear Street on Instagram and Facebook. We're everywhere.
Well, we'll have all your links and everything in our bio. As always, you can find me here in the Flyover State of Film channel. You can check out our recent episode. You can check out the episodes we have just posted, which should be Child's Play and Scream. So you have a nice slasher, a little run through of the last few episodes.
Yeah. Hey, I like it.
And you could follow me on Twitter if you don't already at Chendingo1, and our account at Flyover State Fear. Stay frightful, everyone.
Welcome to Flyover State of Fear.